And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we are talking about Terry McLaurin being activated off the PUP list. Next, we're going to be talking about day 18 of training camp for the Washington Commanders, as we're going to be looking at the key notes and takeaways from today's practice. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the latest around Terry McLaurin. And so if you have not got a chance to see this, Terry McLaurin has been activated off of the PUP list. And so we're going to start with the insights that Dan Quinn gives us, and then really talking about 3 questions to think about now that he has been activated off the PUP list. And so first, let's start with what Dan Quinn had to say, and just really paraphrasing this. And so I think that the first thing that is really important to note out of what Dan Quinn talked about is just what the difference is from being on the PUP list and being off of it. So he says that, look, when you're in the or on the PUP list, really what you're focusing on there is you're focusing on the rehab process. But once you come off of that, now you're talking about ramping up to play football at this point in time. And so you're past the rehab point, and now it's all about just ramping up to get back out there and hopefully for Terry McLaurin to play in week number 1. And so the next thing that Dan Quinn talks about with Terry McLaurin is that he's really into the same type of boat as Marcus Mariota, also to Jordan McGee, Brandon Coleman, like they're all in that same space. And so that is another key to just note with Terry McLaurin is that, they're into that same type of space. And obviously, we know when it comes down to just getting these guys back out there, the Commanders, they say it often with just having, specific type of plans for players and things like that. So we really don't know what that's going to look like for Terry McLaurin versus other players, obviously with the injuries being different or whatnot. But another thing to think about with this is that Dan Quinn kind of gives us a little insight as to how, the ramp up kind of works. And so he talks about like, hey, you go after it one day, so really press it, and then you'll have a recovery day. And so that is something to think about as he's going ahead and trying to get back out there on the field, along with these other injured players or players that have been out. And so it looks like that he's been making some strides. And really, at this point in time, one of the key things too out of this, and really what Dan Quinn said, is that, look, the contract and the medical have been separate here. And so that is, just an indication that, look, medically, he's past the rehab state. And now it's just all about getting Terry McLaurin in shape to hopefully get out there for week number 1. And so those were the key insights to that. And so I just want to start before we get into the questions and just the things that I'm thinking about now that he's off the PUP list, but going back to something that Cliff Kingsbury said a day ago, and it just really sounded like he was talking about just the sense of urgency to get everybody out there. And so, right now at the time of this recording, I believe it's 3 weeks and a day until the Commanders play in their week 1 game against the New York Giants. And so this is a very critical time, especially when you're talking about Terry McLaurin. I don't think that we doubt, just the type of just connection that he's going to have with Jaden Daniels. But I think it's more so about getting on the page just with everybody. I think that is going to be critical for this team. And I think that sense of urgency certainly builds as time goes along, because you want to know exactly what you have going into week 1, because that is going to just definitely impact not only your game plan for week 1, but how you're probably going to look to approach other games and situations and things like that. And so, yes, in training camp, preseason, you do want to give players chances, and you want to, kind of slide them out there into certain situations and things like that. But you also need to know what you want to do, with your main players and players that are going to be big time contributors for you. And so, yes, that sense of urgency, I think, is kind of building here with the Washington Commanders to get everybody out there so you can get everybody on the same page with the communication and everything else. And so just made me think about some of the stuff that Cliff Kingsbury was talking about yesterday when he was talking about getting everybody out there on the grass and just getting prepared here for this upcoming season. And so the next thing to talk about is just really the questions that we have out of this. And so just thinking, and you guys let me know in the comments what you're thinking here. And so the first thing that I think about with this, and I think it is very unlikely, but is there going to be a little bit of a hold in? Because now that he is medically cleared to come off the PUP list and, they feel comfortable enough to start ramping him up, is there the possibility that he doesn't participate, right? Like that is one of the questions that I want to, just find out because he wasn't out there today. And I think obviously as time goes along and he's not out there, it will give you a bit of an indication of maybe, what else could possibly be going on, as far as, is it a hold in, is it still the contract situation and stuff like that? And so I think that that is a question to really think about. Number two, I think that you have to start thinking, okay, if he is going to start hitting the field, I get that he's under the contract, but just off of just, kind of the things that we've been reading and hearing about with this, it just sounds like that, look, he's looking to get a new deal before he gets out there and starts to hit the field. And so if he's getting ready to hit the field now, does this mean that a contract is around the corner? And so that is probably the question number two that I have now that he is off of the PUP list. And then number three, I think it's going to be the energy, which I think is super important. It's probably something that I don't even know if it's going to be talked about as much as it should. But you have to think about this, that Terry McLaurin, they are going to be going crazy when they see him at the practice facility. The energy is going to be high with the teammates, which is something that Dan Quinn talked about. That this is going to be something that is absolutely dominated as far as being talked about in the press. And so, I've talked about this before, as this team pushes forward, you have a huge challenge in front of you, and they have got to minimize distractions. And so I'm not saying that Terry McLaurin is a distraction at this point in time. I'm not saying that, but I think that this situation is going to be interesting to see just what type of energy comes out of this, because if he's in front of the press there, which he is, he's going to be asked about this type of stuff, and that they're going to ask the team about this type of stuff. And so let's see what happens with the energy of the team. Are they able to stay focused? Does it get to a point where, we do hear, hey, I still don't have a contract. I still want my contract. And it's a little bit of a back and forth stuff like that. And so I don't think that that would be the greatest scenario here for the Washington Commanders, really, to be, in situations where you're practicing, you're having some good stuff, and then you have, kind of a back and forth in the media. And so hopefully it doesn't come down to that. But those are three questions to really think about now that Terry McLaurin is off the PUP list. And I'll say this, I'm super excited to see that he has been activated off of this. I really do hope that Terry McLaurin does, hit the field. He does trend towards playing in week one, because he certainly has that opportunity. And this is going to be critical, because when you think about it like this, with the offense and the way that the Commanders like to just really go out and attack teams, they like to play fast. And I think that they're going to play fast again this year. You're probably going to see a little bit of a variation off of that, because they have to make the adjustments. But when you're playing fast, you had better be in shape. And so Terry McLaurin and these guys that have been out are going to have to take advantage of these 3 weeks. And so, like I said, at the time of this recording, 3 weeks and a day before the Washington Commanders play the New York Giants. And so you guys let me know in the comments what your key takeaways are here from Terry McLaurin coming off the PUP list with those three questions. Do you think that he could be headed towards a little bit of a hold in? Do you think that a contract is coming? And then also, too, from an energy standpoint, do you think it's going to be something that's going to impact the team either negatively or positively? Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking here. And so next thing I want to talk about here is Dan Quinn, and just really what he had to say after practice, and just giving us some insights there. And so with Dan Quinn, the first thing that he talks about is the players that were going to be out for the game. And so he's talking about Wagner, Miller, Ertz, Coleman, Mariota, McGee, Cosme, which we know he's going to be out, Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, Tunsil, Jonathan Jones, and Baptiste. All those players listed as out for the game here, so don't expect to see them. He also lets us know that Jaden Daniels and some of these guys are going to get a couple series here, so we don't know how many series. But don't take a long popcorn break. All right. So that is Dan Quinn there. So just paraphrasing that. And so the next thing that he talks about, or he's asked about, I should say, is the safeties. And so this is a group that Dan Quinn is really excited about with the safeties. And he mentions both Quan Martin and Jeremy Reeves. And he said that with both of these players, they've been consistent. They've been hitting their strides and at a high level. He also praised Will Harris, and he talked about Will Harris and just his ability to cover the type of battles that he's been having with Zach Ertz and like the leverage battles and man-to-man and everything else. And they're trying to figure out ways in which they can feature him. And so I just think that when you look at the safeties, and you look at how this team wants to play defensively, they are going to be huge for this team. You cannot just sit back there and cover. You've got to be able to come up and run support, and got to be the type of player that is going to take advantage of opportunities and try to get the football loose. And so just circling back to Quan Martin, who is a player that, we just don't talk about enough, but man, coming into this next season, I'm super excited for him because you're looking at a player that went from 46 total tackles in 23 up to 87 total. He had 50 solos last season and 37 assists. But what I love about Quan Martin so far, he is a guy that is taking the football away because he had 2 INTs in 23. He had 1 in 2024. And I love this about Quan Martin, 3 forced fumbles in 2024. And so this is a guy that is certainly set up to really take a step forward in this defense. Think about if you are, thinking about Dan Quinn when he's with Seattle, the Legion of Boom and those guys like that. When you think of Cam Chancellor and those guys back there, look, they had to make plays. And so I think that this is what the defense or what they defensively want to do as far as running some of those similar sets and just really having the safeties active like that. We talked about Jeremy Reeves. He's a special teams ace. They want to find some plays for him defensively. And Will Harris, he just seems like a guy that's going to be able to do just about everything that you want. And I love the fact that he's a veteran. And I think that certainly is going to help the football team here defensively. And so that's another note talking about that. Also, too, with Dan Quinn, talks a little bit about the defensive line and just really the interior of the defensive line and looking to kind of evaluate that still. And so they're still trying to figure that out. He did say that it is a deep group. And so the next thing that he talks about, is the injuries. And so with the injuries and just people being out, and so going back to that point with Terry McLaurin and then also to, Jordan McGee and all these guys like that, he's saying that, look, you can only control the things that you can control, but this is where other guys have a chance now in that space to really step up. And so, we'll see what happens in preseason. There are a lot of players that are going to be out. And this is one of the most exciting things about preseason is when you get a chance to evaluate your rookies and your undrafted free agents, because you can find some gold out there and guys that can certainly be impactful for you. And so not maybe necessarily, in the start of the season, maybe they come on at the end of the season, but you might find a player that can be a long-term fit for you. And so this is one of the exciting things here with preseason. And obviously, too, they're still battling out there for positions and stuff like that. And so we want to see that. So the next thing, too, he talks about the running back room and just really how that is a deep room. He's looking forward to seeing Monday night. And he mentions, running backs being able to be kick returners. And he mentions the great Brian Mitchell. And so I definitely remember Brian Mitchell and just all the special teams work that he was able to do for this franchise. And so, yes, it does make me think back like, man, we haven't seen, a running back that can not only play, just back there as a runner as far as on the offense, but also getting back there, handling punts, handling kickoff return responsibilities and things like that. And so it will be fun. We've been seeing where, Ja'Cory Krosky-Barrett has been back there taking in kicks and things like that. And so let's see if he gets an opportunity. And so the next thing, talking about Ja'Cory Krosky-Barrett, a.k.a. Bill, he had the no contact jersey on. And so just going through now, just some of the notes here from the practice. And so if you want to see this, you can head over to Hogs Haven. And within that, you're going to see some tweets. You're going to see like the clips and stuff like that, again, just with some of these practice notes that we're just bringing out here. And so the next thing to just, note out from the practice was that there were no pads out there today. And Jaden Daniels hit a very nice pass over to Deebo Samuel. I mean, it was a pretty dime down the sideline there. And so those guys continue with their connection. Surprise, surprise. And then you can see Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Reeves kind of high-fiving Deebo Samuel, because it's a nice thrown ball, nice catch there. Tay Martin looked pretty sharp, and so that's one of the things that's mentioned within that article piece there. Then also, too, just looking at the routes and stuff like that, just players looking sharp, obviously getting ready here for Monday night, and so that was another thing there. It said that Jeremy Reeves had a pick today as well, and so, those were some of the key notes from today. Again, it was no pads, just out there. These guys are just ramping up here for Monday night. And so you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking here, especially when it comes down to Terry McLaurin being off the PUP list. Do you think that this is something that is going to give this team, just a positive jolt of energy? Is it something that's going to be negative here? I'm thinking it's going to be more so in the positive. I just really feel that something is going to get done here with Terry McLaurin. And regardless, I mean, the guy is on a contract here. And so, I don't think that he's necessarily going to, want to miss out on the game checks and things like that. But we'll see how this thing plays out. And hopefully we get 17 out there and he's ready to rock and roll. And he's back on the same page with Jaden Daniels here. And so you guys let me know there. And the next thing too, just some of these key insights and things like that. Like I said before, Jaden Daniels continues to look sharp. Looks like that the safeties looking pretty good. And so defensively, I think that this team is definitely ahead of schedule from last season at this point in time. And so anyway, as we always say, look, go Commanders. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.